But in this case now, it's not established that the cars are from the executive because they say that the government is yet to reveal the identity of the donor. But why do you think that the government has refused to let them know who is behind these gifts?
Look, it's either the government is directly involved or the government is indirectly involved by proxy. In every country, you have friends of the government. In this kind of situation, I am sure if the government is saying we are not the ones, one of the friends of the government could do it, who had benefited from some malpractices of the government. We have them in every country. We have them in Nigeria. We have them in Ghana. We have them everywhere. They will always come, donate things, and nobody will question them because they are benefiting from the common resources that should have gone around to every citizenry.
So if they find out who is behind these gifts, what do you think should be done to that person?
Yeah, if the giver of this gift is a genuine businessman who has a genuine intention, who is known by Gambians to be a good person, I think it's a welcome idea. It could be a philanthropist at that point in time. But if it is the contrary, then questions should be asked and answered.
No, but if, you know, it's a gift from a philanthropist like you just mentioned now, don't you think that there's a possibility that this could come back to haunt the legislators maybe in
There are good philanthropists and there are bad philanthropists. We have them everywhere. I happen to be one of the good philanthropists. If I give, I don't expect return. The bad ones will give and expect a return. The bad ones are the ones that are being sent on errand and they will pretend to be philanthropists. The government will give them the money, show them where to buy whatever thing they need to buy, direct them there, give them security covers to do all that, and they'll pretend to be. So it is the responsibility of legislators, who I believe are very intelligent, to unveil the mask if the government is refusing to unveil the mask.
Now let's look at the situation in Mozambique, where the government has come under fire for spending $2 million on 45 cars at the time of austerity. What does this say of the government's sensitivity to its populace?
Most African countries, their government is never sensitive to the plight of the people. But they are very, very sensitive when it comes to the shenanigans of manipulating the people for their own betterment. This is a country that has said we're in austerity measure. Austerity measure, fine. Most austerity measure in Africa is to starve the people, is to take away what belongs to the people. It happened in Nigeria, where they said there's austerity measure and the people will be the ones to suffer, while the people in government still enjoy most of these things. Austerity measure, you tell me not to eat a particular rice. Why you in government is eating such particular rice? Austerity measure, you tell me don't do this, don't drink this. Why you go out of the country and bring in those things and begin to take those things? So I believe it's just a matter of class. When an African government wants to prove some sense of class, they bring in what is called austerity measure to make certain people look down while others are living big.
Now, well, of course, just like you mentioned now, we've seen this happen, you know, among governments in Africa. But why else do you think that this is commonplace in Africa?
It's a commonplace because, one, you have a two-sided thing. You have the executives who wants to remain in power, who wants to have their way and have their say. You also have some legislators, mark my words, some legislators whose interest is not for the people, but for the interest of their pocket. So when you have both alignment, then it's bound to go through. It's bound to be happening. You're bound to have executives, bad legislators who want to loot the treasury. It's a common thing in Africa.
Well, many thanks. National Coordinator, Activist for Good Governance, Declan Ihekari. Thank you for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Well, elsewhere, Burkina Faso is marking 3 years since the popular uprising ended President Blaise Compaoré's 27-year rule in October 2014. At least 24 people were killed in that uprising as hundreds of thousands of demonstrators who were angered by his attempt to extend his tenure forced him out of power.
3 years ago, the streets of Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, were the scene of a popular revolt that saw thousands of protesters and activists storm the country's parliament as MPs prepared to vote to allow long-ruling President Blaise Compaoré extend his 27-year rule. The mass protest lasted 2 days and marked a turning point in the country's history, which ended with Compaoré being ousted. At least 24 protesters lost their lives and many more were left injured. Like many Burkinabés, Constant Basole is proud of the role he played, which many say was a rare triumph of ordinary Africans over a loathered and entrenched ruler. Despite that, Constant says he feels not enough has been done to compensate those who were injured and those who lost their loved ones. While protesting with thousands of others, he was grazed by bullets that hit him in the stomach and right arm as police shot into the crowd. I tried to run away when I was hit by a second bullet in the stomach and came to hide in this drain. There were several other young people who were also hiding here. Compaoré remains in neighboring Côte d'Ivoire, where he fled as the protest gained momentum. He has acquired Ivorian citizenship. In May this year, a trial began where Compaoré and over 30 ministers faced charges of authorizing the use of deadly force against unarmed protesters. The trial has now been suspended following a motion of unconstitutionality filed by defense lawyers. In Burkina Faso's second largest city, Bobo Dioulasso, Kadidiatou Kondé's life changed after her husband was killed 3 years ago.
Today I have a lot of problems and I'm struggling to support the whole family, especially when it comes to paying for school fees for our daughter and transport to school. 3 years later, we still don't have the full truth surrounding his death. We ask that justice be done for him and those who died during the protests, as well as assistance for the family. We really need help.
Burkina Faso marks a yearly ceremony to commemorate the uprising. Victims hope the government would also compensate the families of those who lost their lives in a process that is said to have set the country on a more democratic path.
In the wake of last month's ambush on U.S. soldiers and a Nigerian soldier in Niger, the country's defense minister has asked the United States for military drones to fight jihadists. Mr. Kala Muntari says both parties are still working hand in hand for peace and security of the country. The presence of U.S. Special Forces in Niger became known last month when 4 of them were killed in an ambush, along with an unspecified number of Nigerian troops. U.S. President Donald Trump later found himself at the center of a political storm after a widow of a dead soldier said he could not remember her husband's name when he phoned to offer condolences. Still to come on the program, UN agencies and South Sudanese refugees living in Ethiopia fight deforestation in the country's western Gambia region. Do join us again.